this is Brittany from Just Be Crafty. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the moss stitch pom-pom scarf. The yarn used in this project is Big Twist Sincerely, which can be found at Joann Fabrics. I'm using 1 ball of the colorway Peacock Confetti and 2 balls of the colorway Light Gray. Please see the description box below for a complete list of materials as well as a link back to the free pattern, which can be found on my blog. This pattern is written with US standard terms and the level of difficulty is beginner to intermediate. The skills we are going to cover in this video include the moss stitch, which consists of single crochets and chains, color changing and striping, and how to make a pom-pom with the Boy Pom-Pom Maker. This video is not sponsored, it's just the pom-pom maker that I use, but there are other ones out there, and in that case you'll want to follow the instructions on your own pom-pom maker. You can also make a pom-pom just using your hands, and I have a very old photo tutorial on my blog on how to make one from years ago. It's kind of embarrassing, but it definitely gets the job done. I'll have that link below if you don't have a pom-pom maker on hand. If you find the tutorial helpful, please be sure to give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you stay in the loop on all my latest tutorials. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. To begin, we're going to start with our main color, and in my case that is the Big Twist Light Gray, and we will chain 30. The finished measurements of this scarf are approximately a 7-inch width and 72 inches long. You can adjust the length, making it shorter or longer, by creating more or less repeat rows. Just note that if you do more repeat rows, you will require additional balls of yarn. Alright, so we're just completing our last few chains, and at this point we should have 30 chains. We're going to start by placing a single crochet in the 4th chain from our hook. Once you complete your single crochet, you're now going to chain 1, skip the next chain, and single crochet in that next chain. Chain 1, skip a chain, and then single crochet in the following chain. Keep working the chain 1, skip a chain until you get to the end of the row. We're now almost at the end of the row, and your last single crochet will go into the last chain of your foundation chain. Okay, so we've just completed our first row. To start our next row, we're going to turn our work and begin by chaining 2. Our single crochet is going to go into that chain space from the previous row, and that's what we're going to be doing for the remainder of the project. So you'll single crochet into that chain 1 space. Chain 1, and then single crochet into the next chain space. Chain 1. And you'll keep repeating that until you get to the end of the row. Okay, so now we're at the last couple stitches of our row. Single crochet, chain 1, and then the last single crochet will go into that chain space, that initial chain 2 space from the previous row. So go ahead and single crochet in there. And that's what the end of row 2 looks like. So now we can go ahead and turn our work. You go ahead and chain 2 and then single crochet in that first chain space. You'll just keep repeating single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1 across the row. Once you complete row 2, you'll want to complete 10 additional rows for a total of 12 rows. So if you would, I suggest to go ahead and pause here and meet back up with me once you've completed all 12 of your rows. Once you get to the very end of your 12th row, stop before you get to your last yarn over of your last stitch. Go ahead and cut the yarn, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Okay, so now I'm just about to do my very last stitch of the 12th row, but I'm not going to complete it. We're going to complete our single crochet with our new color. So go ahead and grab your new color and yarn over with that and complete the single crochet. This will create a smooth color transition. So go ahead and turn your work. Secure your tails with a loose knot. Don't tie these too tight. I actually like to come back and untie these later when I weave in my ends. So you'll just go ahead and keep repeating the moss stitch for the next 4 rows. So if you would like, go ahead and pause here and complete 4 rows with your contrasting color and meet me back up once you get to the last stitch of your 4th row. Once completing these 4 rows, we're going to switch back to our main color. At this point, we're approaching our last stitch of the 4th row of our contrasting color. And like we did for the 12th row, we're going to start our single crochet, but stop before we finish it. You can cut your yarn, leaving about a 6-inch tail, and we're going to yarn over with our main color. For the remainder of the project, we're going to just keep repeating that 16-row repeat of 12 rows of main color, followed by 4 rows of the contrasting color. You'll repeat that 16-row repeat for a total of 15 times. Once you've completed your repeats, you'll then end with 12 rows of your main color. And just to note here, you can adjust the length of your scarf by either completing more or less repeats. Just remember that if you complete more repeats, you will require additional yarn. So if you would once again, go ahead and pause here and meet back up with me once you've completed the remainder of your scarf. That is your desired amount of repeats followed by 12 rows of the main color. Alright, so now we're completing the last few stitches of our scarf. And the next step, I will show you how to make your pom-poms and attach them to your scarf. Once you complete your last single crochet, go ahead and cut your tail, leaving about a 6-inch tail. And then draw that tail up through the loop on your hook and pull tight to secure. Alright, so now it's time to make our pom-pom. I'm using the Boy Pom-Pom Tassel Maker, which includes 1 tassel machine cord, 8 pom-pom arches, 2 pom-pom circles, and 1 case. For my pom-poms, I picked the 3-inch attachment. I really love this pom-pom maker and I find it super handy, and I love the fact that it comes in this cute little case. So you'll want to take your contrasting color and making sure to leave a long tail, feed it through the 2 little feet on either side of your pom-pom maker. You want to make sure you leave a long tail because that is actually what you will use to attach your pom-pom to your project. Once you feed your yarn through those 2 little feet, you want to start wrapping your yarn around the pom-pom maker in a even single layer. You'll then start working in an even layer back the other way. You want to keep repeating that process until the middle part between the 2 feet is completely filled in. Once your pom-pom maker looks like this, you're ready to move on to the next step. On the opposite end of your hanging tail, go ahead and snip the yarn that was wrapped around that other foot. Take the yarn, the front foot yarn, and pull it through so that both of your tails hang evenly. You're going to tie those 2 tails together, and that's what's going to hold your pom-pom together. So you want to make sure that you tie this tight. And also make sure you adjust the tail so that way it's completely in the center of your pom-pom. So once you get your tails right where you want them, go ahead and tie and secure with a knot as best you can. It might actually help to have a friend put their finger down on your first tie so that way you can get that second knot real tight. So once you have that tied, it's now time to snip the pom-pom off of the pom-pom maker. So you're going to just take extremely sharp scissors, and it's important that these are very sharp or otherwise your pom-pom will not turn out right. Go ahead and snip along the little scissors guided edge along the top of your pom-pom maker. I will say it is super satisfying to cut those little ends. So once you reach the very end of your pom-pom maker, you can now pull your maker off of your palm and fluff it out to see what it looks like. Now it won't be a perfect pom-pom right off the bat. So now our next step is we're going to have to trim it because as you can see, it's not a complete perfect circle. And don't be afraid to trim it. The more you trim it, the more dense your pom-pom will look and the better your pom-pom will look. So once again, taking your extremely sharp scissors, and again, that's very important or otherwise your pom-pom will not turn out right. Go ahead and just start trimming. I like to trim mine down quite a bit because I like to have a really dense pom-pom. One thing I did forget to mention is that you want to make sure you hold the two tails out of the way and that you don't trim those off because you'll end up using those tails to attach your pom-pom to your project. It's no problem if you accidentally do snip them off. You could definitely tie around another free string around your pom-pom, but just try your best to not cut those off. So if you would, go ahead and pause here and meet me back up once you have 4 pom-poms made to your liking, and then we can go ahead and attach them to your scarf. Okay, so at this point we're ready to attach our pom-pom to your project. So taking your yarn needle, go ahead and thread it with one of the tails from your pom-pom. Insert it into a corner stitch of your scarf end. And we're simply just going to tie the two tails together to secure it to the corner. I like to make sure that I tie it in a double knot. And then I flip it over and carry the two tails to the other side and tie a double knot back there as well. You can keep repeating that until you find that your pom-pom is secure. I just did it on the front and back for my project. So once you get your tails tied to your liking and your pom-pom feels secure, go ahead and maybe even tie one more knot for good measure. And then go ahead and just snip the ends. You'll now want to repeat that process for your 3 remaining pom-poms. So go ahead and pause here and meet me back up once you're ready to weave in your ends. We're now going to work on weaving in our ends. So you'll want to take your tail and thread it through a yarn needle, and then take your yarn needle and just pull it through a nearby row of stitches. I would say maybe go through about maybe anywhere between 5 to 10 stitches. And then pull it through. And then make sure you don't go back right in where you came out. Maybe skip a stitch and then weave your yarn needle back through the other way. And then you can either go back through in that same stitch row, or I'm going to go into this next row and weave down through a couple stitches. And then I'll go back the other way, making sure not to go directly back into the stitch we just came out of, making sure to skip a little bit of a stitch and then work your way back. By going back and forth like that, horizontal with your project, I find that this helps to conceal your tails as much as possible. But basically the trick to weaving in your ends is to weave them in the most inconspicuous way as possible so that you can't see them, and you want to do this a few times per tail so that way they're secure and in place and you won't find little tails sticking out of your project. I did find a tail that I had just weaved in prior to the one I'm showing you right now is sticking out a little bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim that little end too. You'll want to repeat that process for all of your tails. And once you complete that, you're done with your scarf. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and if you did, please be sure to give the video a thumbs up, and also be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so that you can stay in the loop for all my latest projects. Thank you for watching.